There are places in America where people disappear. Not every year, not every month. Just often enough that locals stop talking about it. The park in this story was one of those places. Officially, it was called Black Ridge National Park. Over 2 million acres of mountains, forests, rivers, and wilderness spread across the Appalachian backcountry. Most visitors came for the views. Some came for hunting. Others came for hiking. A few never came back. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever walked through a forest and suddenly felt like you weren't alone? Not because you heard something, not because you saw something, just because every instinct in your body started screaming that something was watching you. If you have, keep that memory in mind, because that's exactly how this story begins. The man at the center of it was Senior Ranger Ethan Mercer, 47 years old, 22 years with the National Park Service, former Army Scout, search and rescue specialist, the kind of ranger who believed every mystery eventually had an explanation. Lost hikers, bear attacks, exposure, falls. People got scared in the wilderness and imagined things. That was Ethan's philosophy, at least until the summer of 1998, the summer that changed everything. The summer he started carrying a loaded revolver on routine patrols. The summer he stopped hiking alone. And the summer he answered a radio call from a man who had already been dead for 3 years. The trouble started on June 14th. A college student named Aaron Pike disappeared while hiking a trail called Raven's Pass. 21 years old, experienced outdoorsman, excellent physical condition. According to friends, Aaron planned a simple day hike. 6 miles out, 6 miles back, nothing dangerous, nothing unusual. When he failed to return, park authorities launched a search operation. Hundreds of volunteers joined dogs, helicopters. Mounted teams, nothing. No backpack, no clothing, no footprints, no body. It was as if Aaron Pike had stepped off the face of the earth. After 10 days, the search ended. Officially, unofficially, Ethan continued looking. Something about the case bothered him. People vanished in national parks. It happened. But usually they left something behind. A water bottle, a boot, a trail, a mistake. Aaron left nothing. 3 weeks later, another hiker disappeared. Then another, then another. 4 missing persons within 4 months, all vanished within 8 miles of the same valley. A valley locals called Gray Hollow. The name wasn't on official maps. Locals had used it for generations. Most refused to enter after dark. Ethan thought that was superstition. Until October, the first snow arrived early that year. Visibility dropped. Temperatures plummeted. Most tourists left the park. The forests became silent. That's when the radio calls started. At first, they seemed ordinary, static, broken transmissions, interference, nothing unusual for mountain terrain. Then one night, shortly after midnight, Ethan heard a voice. His patrol vehicle sat near Ranger Station 14. Rain hammered the roof. Wind shook the trees. The radio crackled. Then someone spoke. "Can anybody hear me?" The voice sounded weak, male, young, terrified. Ethan grabbed the microphone. "This is Ranger Mercer. Identify yourself." Several seconds passed. Only static then. "I'm lost." The voice sounded closer now, closer than it should have. Ethan checked the signal strength. The transmission appeared to originate somewhere inside the park, within a few miles. "What's your location?" Ethan asked. No answer. Then, "I think something followed me." Ethan immediately sat upright. Years of search and rescue work had taught him one thing. Panicked people rarely lied. What followed you? Silence. Static, then breathing. Heavy breathing. The kind produced by absolute fear. And then the voice whispered, "It's still here." The transmission ended. Ethan immediately contacted dispatch. They attempted to trace the signal. No success. Too much interference. By dawn, a search team entered Gray Hollow. Nothing. No campsite, no footprints, no stranded hikers, nothing. The radio call remained unexplained. A week later it happened again. Same voice, same frequency, same area. This time Ethan recorded the conversation. The man sounded exhausted, cold, desperate. He kept repeating the same sentence. "It's waiting by the trees." Over and over. "It's waiting by the trees." Ethan asked who was waiting. The caller never answered. Instead, he asked a strange question. "What year is it?" Ethan frowned. What year is it?" 1998. Long silence. Then the caller started crying. Not speaking, not screaming, just quietly crying. The transmission ended again. The recording disturbed everyone who heard it. But what happened next disturbed them far more. Park technician Robert Keene listened to the audio the following day. Halfway through the recording, he suddenly turned pale. He asked Ethan where the tape came from. Ethan explained. Robert stared at him, then said something that made the room go silent. "I know that voice." Nobody spoke. Robert swallowed hard, then continued. "That's Aaron Pike, the missing college student, the one who vanished 4 months earlier." Ethan immediately dismissed the idea. Stress could make people hear similarities, Robert insisted. He had met Aaron during a permit registration, talked with him for nearly an hour. The voice was identical. Same accent, same speech pattern, same laugh, same everything. The room became quiet. Nobody wanted to say what everyone was thinking, because if Robert was right, then Aaron Pike had somehow used a park radio for months after disappearing. That was impossible. The next day, Ethan drove to Aaron's parents' house. He brought the recording. Neither parent knew why he had come. He played the tape. Aaron's mother began crying before the recording finished. His father simply stared at the speaker. When the tape ended, neither spoke for nearly a minute. Finally, Aaron's father looked directly at Ethan. His face had gone completely white, and he said, "That's my son." Ethan drove back to the park in silence. Logic told him there had to be an explanation. Someone was playing a cruel prank. Someone had found old recordings. Someone was manipulating the investigation. There had to be a reason. But deep down, something felt wrong. Very wrong. That night he reviewed old missing person files, one by one, case after case, decade after decade. As dawn approached, he noticed something strange, a pattern. Every disappearance connected to Gray Hollow shared one detail. Not one victim had ever been found, not alive, not dead. Nothing. Then Ethan discovered an even older file. A ranger report from 1971. The final page contained a handwritten note. Just one sentence. No explanation, no context, no signature. Only 7 words. "Never answer voices coming from Gray Hollow." Ethan stared at the note. A cold sensation crawled down his spine, because at that exact moment, the radio beside his desk crackled to life. Static filled the room. Then came the same terrified voice. Aaron Pike. Clearer than ever before. And this time, he said something different. Something that would destroy everything Ethan thought he knew about the wilderness. The voice whispered, "Ranger Mercer. It knows you're listening now." The radio went silent. For several seconds, Ethan Mercer simply sat there staring at it. The voice had used his name. Not Ranger, not anybody, not help, his actual name. Ranger Mercer. "It knows you're listening now." Static hissed through the speaker. Then nothing. The room suddenly felt colder. Ethan replayed the transmission 3 times. Each time the same result. The same voice. The same impossible sentence. And each time he felt a growing knot in his stomach. Because Aaron Pike had never met him. Aaron disappeared for months before Ethan became involved in the investigation. There was no reason Aaron should know his name, unless somebody was playing a very elaborate joke. The next morning, Ethan organized a search team. This time, he wasn't sending volunteers. He was going himself. The destination was Gray Hollow. The place every strange report seemed to point toward. The place nobody wanted to discuss. The place older rangers avoided. The team consisted of 6 people. To search specialists, a medic, a tracking expert, a communications operator, and Ethan himself. Before leaving, he stopped by the maintenance building to collect extra batteries. That's when an older ranger named Walter Briggs intercepted him. Walter had worked in the park since the 1970s. He was retiring in 6 months. A quiet man, not known for superstition. When he heard where Ethan was heading, his expression changed. "You're going into Grey Hollow. That's the plan." Walter hesitated, then lowered his voice. "You should stay on the main trails." Ethan frowned. "Why?" Walter didn't answer immediately. Instead he asked, "Have you ever wondered why there aren't any lookout towers in that valley?" Ethan shrugged. "The terrain." Walter slowly shook his head. "No." He leaned closer. "There used to be 3. Then he walked away, refusing to explain further. The search team entered Grey Hollow shortly after sunrise. The weather was perfect. Clear skies, cool temperatures, excellent visibility. Everything felt normal at first. The first few miles passed without incident. Birds sang overhead. Wind moved through the trees. The radio network functioned perfectly. Then, just after noon, everything changed. The birds stopped, not gradually. Instantly. One moment the forest was alive with sound. The next moment, silence swallowed everything. The effect was so sudden that everyone noticed. The medic looked up first. "Did you hear that?" Nobody answered, because they had. The forest had gone dead. No birds, no insects, no wind, nothing. The silence felt unnatural, as if someone had muted the entire valley. A few minutes later, their communications operator reported interference. Then static, then complete signal loss. Every radio failed simultaneously. Backup units failed too. GPS devices began displaying incorrect coordinates. One unit showed their position nearly 40 miles away. Another claimed they were standing in the middle of a lake. The tracking expert muttered a curse. Nothing made sense. Around 2 p.m. they discovered footprints. At first, Ethan felt relieved. Finally, evidence. The prints belonged to hiking boots, size 11, matching Aaron Pike. The team followed them deeper into the valley. The trail continued for nearly half a mile. Then something impossible happened. The footprints stopped, not gradually, not because terrain changed. They simply ended, one footprint, then another. Then nothing. No turn, no stumble, no slide, no animal tracks, nothing. It looked as if the person had taken a final step and vanished. The tracking expert spent almost an hour examining the ground. Eventually he stood up. His face had turned pale. "I've never seen anything like this," Ethan agreed. The soil was soft enough to hold impressions. If someone walked away, there should have been more tracks. There weren't. The last footprint sat alone in the dirt. Beyond it lay untouched ground. The team continued south. 3 hours later, they found a campsite. At first glance it appeared abandoned. A single tent, extinguished fire pit, sleeping bag, backpack. The gear belonged to Aaron Pike. His identification confirmed it. The discovery should have been a breakthrough. Instead, it raised more questions. Because the campsite looked new, not 4 months old. The food hadn't spoiled. The tent showed no weather damage. The backpack appeared untouched. It was as if Aaron had left only yesterday. The medic opened the tent, then immediately backed away. "What is it?" She pointed inside. Everyone looked. A notebook lay open on the sleeping bag. The final page contained only one sentence, written dozens of times, over and over, until the page ran out of space. "Don't follow the voices. Don't follow the voices. Don't follow the voices." That night the team established camp nearby. Nobody wanted to, but darkness was approaching. Returning would be dangerous. The mood around camp was tense. Nobody spoke much. Around midnight, Ethan woke suddenly. At first he didn't know why. Then he heard it. A voice, faint, somewhere in the forest, calling for help. A man's voice, weak, desperate. The sound carried through the darkness. "Help me." One of the volunteers immediately stood up. "I hear somebody." The voice came again. "Closer. Please help me." The volunteer grabbed a flashlight. Ethan stopped him. "Stay here." The voice sounded familiar. Very familiar. Then Ethan realized why. The voice belonged to Aaron Pike. The same voice from the radio. The same voice supposedly missing for 4 months. It echoed through the trees. "Help me." Another volunteer stood up. "We need to go." "No." Ethan's answer was immediate. Nobody moved. The voice continued for nearly 20 minutes, always just beyond the tree line, never getting closer, never getting farther away. Then suddenly it stopped. The forest returned to silence. Nobody slept for the rest of the night, because shortly before dawn they discovered something horrifying. Fresh footprints surrounded their camp, dozens of them, circling the tents, but none led into camp, and none led away. As if something had stood around them all night, watching. The search team left Grey Hollow shortly after sunrise. Nobody argued. Nobody suggested staying longer. The footprints circling the camp had shaken everyone, especially because the ground around the tents had been soft enough to preserve impressions. Yet whatever made those tracks had left no entry point, and no exit point. The team returned to headquarters exhausted. The official report mentioned radio interference, unusual footprints, and the recovery of Aaron Pike's campsite. It did not mention the voice. It did not mention the footprints surrounding camp. And it certainly did not mention the growing fear Ethan Mercer was trying desperately to ignore. For 3 days he reviewed old records, missing persons reports, ranger logs, historical maps, thousands of pages, nothing. Then on the 4th night, he found something, hidden inside a filing cabinet scheduled for disposal. A collection of maps dating back to the 1920s. Most showed ordinary changes, roads, trails, fire towers, maintenance routes, but one map made Ethan freeze. A trail appeared on the 1924 version, a trail that didn't exist on any modern map. It began inside Grey Hollow and disappeared deep into the mountains. The route had a name. Shepherd's Run. Ethan had worked the park for years. He had never heard of it. The next day he searched archival records. What he found was disturbing. Between 1921 and 1948, at least 17 reports referenced Shepherd's Run. Then suddenly, the trail vanished from all official documentation. No explanation. No closure report. No maintenance records. Nothing. As though someone had deliberately erased it. The deeper Ethan dug, the stranger things became. In 1933, 2 surveyors vanished while mapping Shepherd's Run. In 1941, a search party reported hearing voices coming from an empty valley. In 1947, a ranger named Thomas Bell filed a report stating, "Risk people are returning from the trail, different than when they left." The report ended there. No details. No explanation. 3 weeks later, Thomas Bell resigned. He disappeared 6 months afterward, never found. Ethan felt a chill. For the first time, he wasn't investigating isolated incidents. He was uncovering a pattern stretching back decades. Then he found the photograph. An old black and white image taken in 1928. 5 rangers stood beside a trail marker. Behind them was a wooden sign. Partially visible, the words could still be read, "Shepherd's Run, keep to the path." Ethan enlarged the image. Something stood among the trees behind the men. Tall, thin, almost hidden. The shape resembled a person, yet somehow it didn't. Its proportions looked wrong. Its outline blurred strangely. And when Ethan zoomed further, his blood ran cold. The figure wasn't in the background. It was standing between the rangers. None of them appeared aware of it. That night, Ethan received another radio transmission. The voice was Aaron Pike's, but this time Aaron wasn't asking for help. This time he sounded calm, almost relieved. And what he said made Ethan's stomach drop. "Don't come looking for me." Static. Then, "We found the others." Silence. Then one final sentence. "They aren't dead." The transmission ended, and for the first time in his career, Ethan seriously considered quitting. Because deep down, he no longer believed this was a missing persons case. Something else was happening inside Grey Hollow, something far older. And whatever it was, it had begun speaking directly to him. 3 days later, Ethan drove to the northern edge of the park. His destination was Fire Tower 12. An abandoned lookout station closed in 1978. The tower hadn't appeared in modern ranger guides. Most employees didn't even know it existed. But old records revealed something unusual. Nearly every historical disappearance connected to Shepherd's Run referenced Fire Tower 12. It appeared repeatedly, like a landmark nobody wanted to discuss. The drive took 6 hours. The hike took another 3. By sunset, Ethan reached the tower. The structure leaned slightly. Weathered wood groaned in the wind. Broken windows stared across the forest like empty eyes. Inside, dust covered everything. The place looked untouched, until Ethan discovered a locked storage compartment beneath the floor. The lock had rusted. One strike broke it. Inside sat a metal box. Within the box were cassette tapes. Dozens of them, each labeled with dates. 1972, 1973, 1974. Ranger recordings, personal logs. Ethan brought them home. The first few contained routine observations, wildfires, weather, maintenance issues, nothing unusual. Then he reached tape 19, recorded by Ranger David Harlan, October 11th, 1977. The man's voice sounded exhausted, terrified. The recording began normally, then changed. I can hear them again. Long pause. They sound exactly like the missing hikers. Another pause. They stand below the tower every night. Heavy breathing. They keep asking me to come down. The tape crackled. Then Ethan heard something else. Another voice. A second voice in the background, weak, distorted, calling from far away. At first Ethan couldn't understand it. He rewound, listened again, and nearly dropped the recorder. The voice wasn't from 1977. The voice belonged to Aaron Pike. The same voice, the same missing hiker, a man who wouldn't even be born for another 20 years. Ethan replayed it repeatedly. The result never changed. Aaron Pike's voice existed on a recording made decades before his birth. The realization shattered any remaining hope of a rational explanation. That night, Ethan listened to every tape. Near dawn, he found the final recording. Tape 31. The last entry ever made from Fire Tower 12. Ranger David Harlan spoke only one sentence, a sentence interrupted by screaming. The people returning from Grey Hollow aren't the same people who left. The tape ended. No further recordings existed. David Harlan resigned 3 days later, and vanished 7 months afterward. Just like Thomas Bell. Just like Aaron Pike. Just like dozens of others. Then Ethan noticed something horrifying. Every missing person connected to Grey Hollow disappeared at the same age. 27, 32, 41. Different years, different decades, different lives. Yet each had spent time on Shepherd's Run, and each reported hearing voices before vanishing. The pattern wasn't random. Something inside Grey Hollow wasn't hunting people. It was choosing them. And Ethan feared he knew who it might choose next. Because since finding the tapes, he had begun hearing voices too. Even when the radio was turned off. On November 17, 1998, Ethan Mercer entered Grey Hollow alone. Officially, he was conducting a survey. Unofficially, he was ending the investigation. Or trying to. He carried food, water, a rifle, extra batteries, and the old 1924 map showing Shepherd's Run. The trail still existed, hidden beneath decades of overgrowth, waiting, as though it had never truly disappeared. By late afternoon, Ethan reached a ridge overlooking a valley absent from every modern map. The moment he saw it, he understood why. The valley shouldn't exist. Not where it was. Not with the surrounding terrain. It was as though an entirely different landscape occupied the space. Fog drifted through the trees. Silence filled the air. And below, people were walking, dozens of them, men, women, children, all moving slowly through the mist. At first Ethan thought they were hikers. Then he recognized faces: Aaron Pike, David Harlan, Thomas Bell. People missing for decades. Some should have been dead, others impossibly young. Yet there they were, walking, talking, living. None appeared injured. None appeared frightened. Then Aaron looked directly at him, across nearly half a mile, and smiled. Ethan stumbled backward. The distance made recognition impossible. Yet Aaron had seen him. He knew it. The fog shifted. The valley changed. And suddenly Ethan realized something far worse. The people below weren't trapped. They weren't prisoners. They weren't victims. They belonged there. A voice spoke behind him, close enough to feel. Now, you understand. Ethan spun around. Nobody stood there, yet the voice continued. It doesn't kill people, The air felt heavy, wrong, like pressure before a storm. Then came the final sentence. The sentence that would haunt Ethan forever. It rewrites them. The ridge trembled. The forest seemed to bend, and Ethan ran. He ran harder than he ever had. Branches tore at his clothes. Darkness swallowed the trail. Behind him came footsteps, hundreds of them, not chasing, following patiently, as if they knew he couldn't escape forever. Ethan reached his vehicle just before dawn. He never returned to Grey Hollow, never spoke publicly about what happened, never filed a final report. The investigation officially remains unsolved. Years later, after retirement, Ethan left one handwritten note inside his personal journal, a note discovered after his death. Only 12 words. The missing aren't dead. They're living somewhere that shouldn't exist. And beneath those words was one final sentence, written shakily, as though he had hesitated before finishing it. Sometimes I think they're trying to bring us there too.